Is it possible that the tension you're carrying around with you isn't just emotional, but also energetic? And what if the way out of that tension is learning to shift the frequency your whole system is operating on? More and more these days, we're talking about quantum energy and the quantum space.
Today on Mastering Change, we're joined by my craniosacral therapist, Lulu Ferrand, who explains how CST helps release the stuck energy we absorb from stress and fear, and how higher frequencies brings us back into balance.
Some of you who might have been at Oxford this last year may have met Lulu. She was holding the CST sessions. She'll also be back next year. But for those of you who don't know how CST really works, this episode is going to open that world up for you.
Let's get into the conversation. So without further ado, Lulu Ferrand, it's my pleasure to welcome you to our podcast today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for asking me. Yeah, great.
Hi, Lulu. Welcome to the podcast. So as everyone now knows, we always start this podcast with a little card game. On these cards, I've selected a few from the pack. We have a prompt, and the idea is that this prompt will lead into some form of narrative, hopefully into a little story that will help us connect with you and you connect with our audience. So the card that I have picked out says, I feel free when ...
It's quite an easy one, actually. When I'm in nature, I think.
Why is
When I'm
that?
in the woods,
How come?
I feel free. And actually, probably I feel free when I'm connected to myself, which I am now. I didn't used to be. But, when there's a deep connection down, connecting to your heart rather than looking out from your head. So connecting into your heart and being in nature, and it's like there's no age in me.
Why do you think that makes you makes one feel free, or makes you specifically feel free? Both of those two things, they're different things, but why would you think? What do you think?
Because then you're connected to yourself. You're connected to the soul, the essence of you that's come into this world within the physical body. You've made a real connection to it. So then you connect into your surroundings and everything at all different levels. So all the energy, this whole host of energy, not just that kind of very nature energy, but yeah, it's an interconnection, an interconnectedness to everything. That's when you're free. Does that make sense? Does it make sense?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking of, like, if it makes you feel free, what are you freeing yourself from in order to, if you're connecting to yourself? Because I mean, there's a lot of times that I imagine people would connect. I mean, they can feel trapped by themselves, I guess. But I think so. I'm wondering what it is about. What are you freeing yourself from in order to connect to yourself? What have you had to get rid of in order to connect to that place?
A lot of work. So if I can explain my kind of perception of the way we live as humans on this planet. Okay, so we work with like a vibrational frequency. We're all on different levels. Okay, and some are higher than others. So you'll have the Dalai Lama at the top, and then you've got, a mass murderer maybe at the bottom. Okay, and that's on the people level. Also within that level of vibrational frequency is everything else. So all our nature around us, all our thoughts, all our actions, all our everything that we do and everything we think and everything that we speak is also on that scale. Okay, so all the lovely things that you're talking about is all at the top. All the stuff that you start, engaging with that's of a lower frequency is at the bottom. And people are there. History is there. Things like a layer of trauma is there. So like a layer of birth trauma. So we're talking about the quantum field. Okay. So this is the easiest way for me to explain it, is that it's actually on levels going up. Okay. So let's take us at 50%. Okay, so we're halfway there. If I engage with the stuff that's of a lower frequency of my 50 level, I'm dragging myself down. If I engage with the lighter stuff, then I'm raising myself up. Okay, that's the kind of simplest way of a nervous system being in harmony with the physical body. And the more you engage with the higher stuff, the freer you will feel.
Okay, perfect. So releasing the kind of those lower frequency things from your life in order to be able to then.
I've, yeah, I've released loads of stuff, and also I just don't engage with it anymore.
And that was the biggest teaching for me when we did a bit of work together, was this idea of frequency and using. So this is why when you said the heart, it made sense to me, is like leaning in into that intuition, to that feeling, to that sensing, to that innate ability to, you know, connect or not with something, and to be able to judge the energy and where to spend your time, so this idea of having a field, protecting the field, and helping that field grow bigger. How you increase your capacity by increasing by going up this kind of frequency. So when you spoke to what helps you feel free, nature is a great example of a higher frequency, being out in nature, connected to the earth, feeling the system that lives and breathes around us. That's one way of sitting in that kind of higher frequency space. And I love the intersection of kind of the spiritual and the science that sits in that description that you've just given us. Because it makes sense intuitively, because of the feeling that you can, as you were walking through some of those examples. But there is science, and there is kind of a deep rooted understanding of or energy and energy fields that kind of underpins what you're describing.
Yeah, we're all energy. And we're the quantum entanglement of the quantum physicists. There is no end to us. We have a concentration around us. And interestingly, when I qualified in 2013, we were taught to palpate the energy field at an arm's length, 3 feet from the body, and you could. And when I say palpate, I work from the feet, so the client's lying on the couch, and with my mind, I just kind of think, oh, let's just see if we can. Where does the energy field start to get a bit thicker, and that's your like concentration of your energy fields that you can pick up other people's stuff. Your soul's very much in there, and it's not there anymore. It's all 12 feet, 10 to 12 feet off the body. So we're evolving as humans. We're becoming much more light bodies, more sensitive, more intuitive, more psychic. So with that, we're linking. So the importance of what we are engaging with is really important. The aim high. Not low.
But if you look in like at the kind of popular commentary around how much time we spend on devices, when you think about it, really is kind of a framework for living. It doesn't need to be over intellectualized, or the academic rigor that sits behind, the academic or the scientific understanding that sits behind it is important as a proof point of efficacy. But it is just a really great principle as to where you spend the lion's share of your time. And, every time I log on to a platform now in search of just some distraction, or your words remind me that that's on that kind of lower vibration. The news, like
Yeah.
a previous avid consumer of the news, finding a balance that keeps me informed and aware, but not kind of drawn down. So,
Mm. Yeah. I once sat next to someone at dinner, and he said, "So what did I think of the war in Ukraine?" And and he was really prodding me for all these very low level conversations, which I didn't really want to engage with. So I just said, "I don't know. I don't listen to the news. I don't have an opinion. I can't change it. So why would I want to engage in the horror of that? I know it's there. I can like shine a beam of light on it, but I don't need to engage in it." And he said to me, "Well, it's all right for you living in your rarefied world." I said, "But you could live there too. We choose how to live." We choose, we're creating our own reality almost. We're in a big TV show, so why don't we surround it with lots of lovely things, then engage and fuel the lower frequency stuff. So by engaging with it, not only am I lowering my frequency, I'm fueling that low frequency thing. But if I go higher, then I'm putting my focus on the good stuff.
I would have to challenge that a little bit, in as much as in the world that we work in. So we work with, well, not me particularly, but clinicians, and certainly the people who listen to this podcast will work with sort of trauma survivors, people who will have, I'm sure, have experienced things, and because of that will be vibrating on a much lower frequency than all these wonderful, nice things that are vibrating up here. That I think, I was thinking of like addicts that I used to work with, and prisoners that I used to, like mass murderers, that I did take myself into a prison and work with them, because that was a passion of mine, that I to help people who had committed terrible things because of addiction. And therefore, I do think there's that, you can turn a blind eye to some things, but then there's other things that, despite the frequency that they may be vibrating on, there's a calling to help, to engage. And
I totally get that. I'm 10 years down the line or 12 years down the line of working on myself. So that's where I am now. But all my clients are down there. They're in the trauma field that you've just been talking about.
Yeah.
And it's about, engaging with them in a supportive way so that they feel safe to let go of the trauma that they're holding. Because often when things come up in the present moment that we are living in right now, it's coming up in order to leave. Our bodies are naturally wants to self-repair. And I know we've gone through a lot of trauma. There's also past life trauma and ancestral stuff that comes through as well. Let's go really wacky. But that's also there in the field, and it's also there in the history of everything. So we've got this pea super of ugh. And all I'm saying is that it's really good to get higher up, even if it's just a notch higher on the thing. And I'm not putting down or belittling anything that anyone's gone through. But there is a way out. And sometimes when things are coming up and reminding you, and it's a trigger of this, sexual abuse I had when I was a child or whatever. It's actually the body is trying to let it go. And I really, really believe that in a very deep way, that it has this capacity to let it go. Our brains get in the way sometimes because we're human.
I think that's what you're saying, is what I hear, is like, from when you're working with people who are like, having done this work, you are then in a position to kind of help guide people, and that's your choice then to do that, to engage with people who are on a lower frequency because they're potentially stuck in their trauma. And then as you say, they can make a choice. They can make a choice to remain there, to keep looking at things that perhaps trigger them or overwhelm them, like wars in Ukraine or political distress or whatever it is, and remain in that. Or they can choose to go for a walk in nature, or they can choose to kind of engage in some sort of lighthearted laughter or movement or whatever it is that will bring them up into that higher frequency. And
I think you see lots of people doing this, going on their own healing journeys, which looks like, now I have the language, getting into kind of higher vibration, higher frequency situations more often, because it's not to deny that we can't be in, this is life. You can be living with people with terminal illnesses. You can be it's not to discount that, is what I think I understand. It's to make sure that there's the awareness of, the more time you spend in the higher frequency, the more it will pull you up and out.
Exactly.
Through.
Exactly. And it might just be noticing that a particular flower is looking beautiful, the small steps. And actually the really big thing that is that I want to draw attention to as well is that those people who are working with those trauma clients, they need to be looking after themselves, otherwise they were picking up all sorts of stuff from them, in their own energy field.
How
So
do you do that, Lulu? Because you work with lots of people that are in that
how
situation.
do I do that?
Yeah, and it would be great as well as just answer, maybe as part of the answer to that, to talk a little bit about your own journey to this, because it might help kind of frame and contextualize your own path to, living in a higher frequency, higher energy field.
Mm. I've kind of always had this kind of feeling that I'm here to do something more than just live as a human. So there's always been that kind of under the scenes. But I had a spiritual awakening. I mean, on the 1st of January 2011. So if you're into numerology, it was lots of ones just after lunch. So I imagine it's 11 minutes past 1, but it may be not. But yeah, I just had this all over buzz that took me 10 months to work out what it was, because I kept emailing lots of people, what is this feeling that I'm getting? And I just felt highly sensitive. So I then tripped into noise sensitivity and just feeling stuff. I could feel everything. I could feel, I could just feel someone's grief. I just really could connect into everything, and not just people. I just felt very connected. And it was wonderful. I wrote a book about it, actually, if anyone's interested. But that started me on the journey of craniosacral, because I thought we've got to have some sort of qualification in all of this. So I just was working, I've been doing that for the last, goodness knows how long, 12, 13 years. And I've got a very busy practice, and I love it because everybody's different. You've got 10 people coming in with, say, anxiety, panic attacks, or whatever. They've all got different reasons why they've got it. So it's about unpicking and unraveling all those different reasons in a supportive way. So when we talk about not picking up stuff earlier on, it's when you engage with someone. So this could be a friend having a cup of coffee. You're having a cup of coffee with who's going through a particularly bad time, and it's offloading. You come away, you're feeling, God, I feel dreadful. It's going to take me 2 days to get over this. Okay, that's an empath. Okay, this is what I'm really focusing in on right now, because that's basically me, highly sensitive and picking up all sorts of things, which is why I need to stay high in the frequency. So, and apparently we're 20% of the population. So that means in a family of 4, at least one of them has got a hypersensitivity. And I think particularly the children, there's a lot of exclusion in schools at the moment, particularly with the children. Their energy fields are amazing, and so I'm trying to create an awareness of the field of energy, the need to be connected and understanding our energy within our physical body. And once we've got that understanding, we can kind of cleanse, we can ground, we can protect, and it becomes second nature. What I want to teach people is that it becomes second nature. So then you have a belief that you're okay, and that's the kind of process that I've been going through. But and I've learnt from babies. They're amazing teachers. I've learnt from horses. They didn't even speak. So because I treat horses as well. So pooling everything together, I want to help that 20% of the population who do not understand about their energy fields and being able to connect with it, rather than being overwhelmed and oversensitive to it. So once they get to kind of understand it, then you have your superpower. You feel great.
And is
But
that
that's the
what
journey.
is that what so once you help someone connect to their energy field, so one of the, and specifically you're talking about the 20% of kind of empath sensitive children, adults, when they connect to it, the idea or the end result is that they feel free, I guess. Is that what is that the hope?
Yeah, they feel connected to themselves. They don't feel frightened to go out into the world or to engage with people.
I would say safer.
Yeah.
safer,
It's
safe in the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because I think that kind of high empath tendency means you're so easily dysregulated or so easily. I mean, I'll talk about my personal. I came to you with a lot of fear around illness, not my own, maybe others, and I hadn't kind of connected or thought about it. But it holds you back from enjoying and living in the moment. And you know, it was very interesting how it's not a conscious shift that happens in the head. It's a physical shift.
Yeah.
It's very hard to describe, and I'm really struggled when I've talked about my own experience with CST to bring words to the experience.
Can I ask a question? Because I think I've always resonated with, I know that I'm a high empath. I know I'm sensitive. I know I feel energy, but I've never felt fear. I've never felt anxious to walk in the world. I've had addictions, which I know are part of this kind of overly sensitive, whatever you want to call it, like is often you go into the path of addiction, especially that's what Gabor would say anyway. And I think I
Yeah.
resonated with that.
Yeah.
But I never have felt fear or anxiety or but is that because I perhaps jumped a stage and was immediately into the connected to that energy straight
Yeah,
away?
well, we're all slightly different. Or we're all different. How great is that? It would be very boring if we're all the same. But within that group, people have different sensitivities to different things. So I don't know whether you engaging with people that you feel like you picked up some of their stuff, and then it's a few days later you think, oh, right now I feel clearer, or do you find that if someone's shouting, you kind of that you struggle to deal with that?
No, I just think I feel for me the way I've connected to energy is I can walk into a room and I immediately know how I need to be because of what the energy is, who is and who is where and how they are. Like how do they need me to show up in that space for them to make sure that they are feeling safe? That
Before you harness that, Minter, would you not say that all of those feelings were part of the addiction? Do you know what I mean? Like all of those overwhelming.
No, I didn't ever. I hadn't harnessed it. That was before I even became an addict. I
When-
had that
Oh,
ability. That was I've always been able to walk into a room and be able to say what's needed of me right now and how do I give that to that person or to those people or to whatever I am able to be that
Yeah.
for that person.
Well, you're lucky. You're lucky. Not everybody in that group feels like that. But do you feel that the same way about yourself? Would you give to yourself before you gave to someone else?
That's what probably I didn't used to do, but that's what I probably do more of now. Um, def-
We should start with ourselves,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
I spoke to someone who's finished the one of the courses that I run, and she said yesterday, she said, "This may seem weird, Lulu, but," she said, "I used to be really scared about going out, even shopping." She said, "And now I go out with my little light shining around me, and I just think, how lucky are people coming into my energy field?" I thought, yes, in the back of the net.
Oh, nice.
That's it, change. So, yeah, we're all different, and I just love to teach them others. So if of the for babies, that would be amazing, because they are a lot of children that the body starts to form a fear and a heldness, and it feels very solid. And okay, if I can describe, I hope the listeners are into past lives and stuff like that. So if you come in to this incarnation as a soul coming into the body that is quite small and is going to grow very quickly, if you're on that on that scale of frequency that I was talking about earlier, if you're quite high up on that, then you are a very powerful. How sometimes you look at babies, you think, "Wow, look, you look like you've been here before." They know it. They have been there before, and the sensitive ones, I'm saying only 25%. The sensitive ones will, just as the wind blows, will go, and then noise, they'll go, So I would love to be able to teach the mothers, just say, that's the wind, and that's clearing away some energy, or whatever they want to say, but just to reassure and go that this is what it feels like. This is what the skin feels like. I'm going to give you a little massage and really help the babies connect in with their energy field, because otherwise there's often a disconnect. It's like,
I
it's much easier for the physical body to carry, your soul, rather than be integrated and blended with it in a harmonious way. Does that make
It's
sense?
really true if I think about the babies that I've known closely, one in particular with a huge startle reflex, and they're very attuned to noise and environment and circumstance and situation. And just the ability, I mean, we talk about nervous system regulation, co-regulation,
That's it.
how, yeah. And so that's the science behind what you're talking about, is the
Mm.
ability to kind of, um, yeah, be that grounding, present, connected energy. And I think if more of us had that, then, in all contexts, parenting, colleagues, friends, significant others,
Yeah.
it's just, and I think that's the change when we talk about humanity 2.0. That for me is a possibility, is if we can all kind of create that stronger connection to self and our energy fields. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
And I don't know whether you've come across Veda Austin. Have you heard of Veda Austin? I mean, she's doing amazing discoveries with water. And she did an experiment with some eggs. And I talk about this actually with some of my clients. So a battery hen egg, she freezes the albumin, the white, the thin white bit of the white part of the egg, and does a freezing process on it, and then looks at the formations of what it, the crystallization in the freezing process. And the battery hen eggs are all kind of jagged and kind of pointy and not very nice. And the ones that are organic and free range have got beautiful crystal formations in them. But then she went on to put the free range organic egg in the middle of a group of battery hen eggs. And this makes me feel really emotional actually. The battery hen eggs started to take on the crystalline formula of the free range egg in the middle. Now,
Wow.
so that means, and actually, the further out they were, the less it was. But the ones close by you, so say your family unit, if you look after yourself and you are, shining bright, then everyone around you, everyone that you come into contact with, or particularly your family, will all get the benefit. So that's all we have to do, is be the egg.
Absolutely, but they say that on the other side of things as well, don't they? They say if you're in your friendship group of multiple people are starting to get divorced or things happening, it won't be long before that kind of happens to you, because these things energetically, like, you just kind of some sort of energetic transference or something, whether you're from a negative standpoint and also a positive standpoint.
Yeah, was it Gabor last year that was talking about like the dark energy that swirl? Just don't give it the attention, because the more you feed it, the more it kind of can swirl and grow. And I remember it tipping into a very spiritual moment. No, it wasn't Gabor. Was it Dick? We were having a conversation. And I just remember thinking, wow, this has tipped quite into the spiritual, but it absolutely makes sense, because energy fields grow or contract based on how much we attention we give them, and where the mind, we've often heard about where the mind goes, the energy flows.
Mm.
Um, and I think
That's absolutely it, Emma. It's absolutely it. It's, you can't separate spiritual and mind and body. It's all intertwined.
mm, great, great.
Knowledge is power as well, isn't it?
It
If
is.
if you understand, and sometimes you just don't need to dig so deep. Sometimes when clients are releasing, it's like, oh, I wonder what that was. I feel, ooh, that was pretty chunky. Maybe a lot of kind of shaking. And it's like, you don't need to know about that. Just let it go. And then other times we know what it is, and I say, look, don't even think about that. Going forward, your body's let that go. because the more you bring it back into the now, you're reminding your body of that time. Let it go. And I think,
This might be a good time to talk about CST
I was
particularly.
just about to say that. I was like, we've had this wonderful conversation, and I don't like think we mentioned CST or craniosacral therapy really at all, or what it is, and maybe that's a good thing to do, I think.
well, it's quite difficult to describe because there are lots of different levels of energy within the body. It's a 2-year training, by the way, after anatomy and physiology. So it's not just like a quick couple of weekends with like some of the other things. And you go in through all the different, the more mechanical side of things, the bones and the muscles. But then you start going into the patterns of the pores of the connective tissues. So you learn all the different things and the energy that's held in different parts of the body, the vagus nerve, and all the different mechanics of the body. And then when you actually go to treat someone, they're lying on the couch, all nice, comfortable, blankets on them. Put your hands on their feet, and I just listen. So I'm just see what's the body. And if you are in a neutral place with no expectation, and you listen to see what the body wants to tell you, you can feel the flows and the energy. And it's like, whoa, the client thought they had a dodgy knee, but actually the head, it's like I'm being pulled to the head. So it's an amazing therapy for trauma. It's particularly well known for babies after birth. I think every baby should have it, whether they've had a traumatic birth. I still think it's a small hole to come out of. So I think every baby should have it, and it would be amazing if we get that into the maternity ward. And yeah, and it's a process of unwrap. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's 8 sessions, but it's a process of like peeling the layers off to get to the nub of whatever it is that's ground you to a halt. And it could be, well, it could be all sorts of things. I just love the digging and trying to work out the background to it all.
Why craniosacral therapy? Because from what you were talking about there, it's energy around the whole body rather than just just the head or the. So why is it called craniosacral therapy, and how is that? Yeah, explain that.
Well, cranium's the skull, and sacrum's the base of the spine.
Okay,
So it's basically between the 2 points of the head and the spine. If you say you hold that in an awareness, but you hold the whole body. It's not just held in one place. If there's a pull, say someone's got a lower back problem, it may not even be anything to do with the back. It might be the liver. And so you clear the liver, and then the back straightens up. So I just worked very openly. I just listened to see and sometimes the client will say they'll go, oh, I've got a picture of something that's happened, a scene that's happened in their life, or they'll have a word that just comes into their head, or, oh, I forgot to tell you, blah 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 happened. Now, now this is what's happening now. So we link the two. So it's a process. It's fascinating, and it's the body holds the score. The body decides on its own treatment. It's biodynamic, the craniosacral. So I just listen and just allow it to do its own shifts, and I give it some space and hold it and allow it to do it. And you can have some, pretty amazing, releases. Birth trauma in a 77-year-old, first session, it could be, I'm just open to it.
And it involves talking at the same time then. So it's the therapy actually was like when I've had it didn't involve any talking, but I imagine the way you say if something comes up, it's spoken about, but it's not, you don't need to talk.
Don't need to talk, no. So if someone is highly traumatized, I probably would be hands off. I wouldn't even put hands on, it depends on what the trauma is, but just very, very gentle holding, and just allow the body to and highly traumatized people is, it could be, a long term, it take a long time to get to it. It depends how much speak. If they've done lots of speaking therapy, and they go, "Oh, I've just been, just talking and talking and talking for the last 5 years, haven't got any. I've ground to a halt. I don't seem to be progressing." The body, when it's done all that to the talking, sometimes the body just goes, "Whoa, you've got to slow it down." So you've got to do both. You've got to do the talking and the body.
I mean, I came to you after a lot of yoga practice, and then it kind of moved me on a whole nother level. So I think it's a really interesting modality that isn't spoken about enough or understood in the context of its opportunity and application, would be my um, summary of CST, speaking at it from a kind of personal experience perspective, and then an understanding of how that modality in the context of the field could
Mm.
play out.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a really chunky training. It's quite in depth, and and we've got an outcome measure now, which is a proper peer-reviewed, validated outcome measure. So I'm using it in my clinic, and and loads of craniosacral therapists are using it. So we're going to have some proper data. So yeah, we can say to the ad. Oh no, I can't say that. Let's just cut that little bit out. We can say, off you go to the Advertising Standards Authority, who has been trying to close down people if they say, we had an amazing experience and healed whatever. So yeah, and we're going to have some results. So that's really cool.
Really exciting. That is really exciting.
I'm
Yeah.
conscious of time, so I'm going to ask you the question that we ask all of our guests, which is if we zoom, and I'm not going to go there for long because I want to stay high vibration, but whether you look at the kind of macro landscape of geopolitical unrest, climate things, right down to kind of society and community and family, there's lots of tension, there is lots of dark energy at play, there's lots of distraction to take people's frequency and to use your language, down. What would be, if you had a single lever for change or a button you could push to be the catalyst for the change that we want to see or need to see for a positive trajectory for humanity, what would it be?
To rise above it. To visualize maybe going up a podium and standing on the top, knowing that everything's below, to rise above, to stay as high as you can. And I know it sounds a bit wacky, but that will help everybody around you. And
Yeah, and I when you do think like that, it does change your perspective on things. And yeah, I've definitely lost connection with that teaching in the last probably 2 or 3 weeks, which tells me I need to book in with you again.